Most travelers think the hardest part of the airport is security lines, crowded terminals, or rushing to the gate before boarding closes. But in 2026, many of the biggest surprises are actually happening at immigration. Border officers in several countries have started asking questions that travelers didn't commonly hear just a few years ago. Some questions are about your travel plans. Others are about your work, your online presence, or even details that can feel unexpectedly personal. The reason is simple. Immigration systems have become much more advanced. Governments now use larger databases, digital screening tools, and smarter verification systems to confirm who is entering and whether their story matches the reason for travel. Because of that, the conversation at the counter can look very different from what many travelers remember. And the tricky part is that people often arrive fully prepared with their passport and documents, yet still get caught off guard by questions they never expected to hear. Number 1. Social media screening. One of the newer things travelers are encountering at immigration is questions about their social media presence. Immigration officers in several countries now have the authority to ask travelers about their social media accounts during entry checks. In some cases, they may request the usernames or handles you use on major platforms, so they can quickly review publicly available information. The goal is not to judge personal opinions or lifestyle, but to verify identity and check for potential security concerns or inconsistencies with the reason for travel. This practice has expanded gradually in recent years. For example, travelers applying to the U.S. Electronic System for Travel Authorization, or ESTA, are asked to list social media identifiers used in the past few years. While providing this information is technically optional, it has become part of the broader screening process used to confirm identities and detect possible risks. Border agencies now rely on digital analysis tools that can quickly scan public posts, profile details, and recent activity. If someone claims they are entering for tourism, but their public posts suggest they plan to work, attend long-term programs, or stay indefinitely, that mismatch can trigger additional questioning. In most cases, officers are only reviewing publicly visible information rather than private messages. For travelers, the key takeaway is simple. Make sure your online presence doesn't contradict the purpose of your trip. Consistency between your application, your answers, and your public social media activity can help avoid unnecessary delays during entry screening. Number 2. How much money are you carrying? During immigration interviews, officers may also ask travelers a straightforward but important question: how much money they are carrying when entering the country. Many people assume there is a strict limit on how much cash someone can bring into the United States, but that isn't actually the case. There is no legal cap on the amount of cash you can carry into the country. However, there is an important rule travelers must follow. If you are carrying more than $10,000 in cash or monetary instruments when entering the U.S., you are legally required to declare it on your customs declaration form. This rule exists mainly to help authorities monitor potential financial crimes, such as money laundering, tax evasion, or illegal transfers of funds. Border officers may ask this question during routine interviews to make sure the amount you report verbally matches what you declared on your documents. Even small inconsistencies can lead to additional questions or a secondary inspection. At the same time, arriving with extremely little money can also raise concerns. Officers may wonder how a traveler plans to pay for accommodation, food, and transportation during their visit. For example, if someone claims they are staying for several weeks, but appears to have very limited funds and no clear access to money, it can trigger follow-up questions about credit cards, bank accounts, or financial support from friends or family. In most situations, the purpose of this question is simply to verify that travelers can support themselves during their stay, and that their financial declarations are accurate. Number 3. Who is paying for your trip? Immigration officers may also ask travelers a simple but important question during entry checks: who is paying for your trip? Border officers ask this to confirm that visitors have a clear and legitimate way to cover their travel expenses. Traveling internationally involves costs such as accommodation, transportation, food, and activities, so officers want to ensure that travelers are financially supported during their stay and are unlikely to run into problems while visiting the country. In many cases, the answer is straightforward. Some travelers simply explain that they are paying for the trip themselves using personal savings, credit cards, or travel funds they have set aside. Others may be traveling for business, where a company or employer is covering flights, hotels, and other expenses. Students or younger travelers sometimes mention that their parents or family members are sponsoring the trip. All of these situations are normal, but the key is being able to clearly explain the arrangement if asked. If someone else is paying for your travel, officers may ask a few follow-up questions to understand the relationship and confirm the details. For example, they might ask who the sponsor is, how long you plan to stay, and whether accommodation has already been arranged. The purpose isn't to make the process difficult, but to verify that the travel plan makes sense financially. As long as you can confidently explain who is covering the trip and how your expenses will be handled, this question is usually just a routine step in the immigration interview process. Number 4. Who will you be visiting? Immigration officers may also ask travelers who they plan to visit during their trip. This question may sound simple, but it helps officers quickly confirm that you have a clear and realistic plan for your stay. Travelers who know exactly where they are going, who they are meeting, and how long they plan to stay generally move through the interview process more smoothly. If you are visiting family or friends, officers usually expect a straightforward explanation. That typically includes who the person is, what your relationship is with them, and where they live. For example, a traveler might say they are visiting a cousin, sibling, or friend who lives in Chicago or another U.S. city. In some cases, officers may ask a quick follow-up question, such as how long you plan to stay with them or whether you already have their address. The purpose isn't to interrogate travelers, but to make sure the travel story makes sense and matches the information listed on entry documents or visa applications. Someone who cannot explain who they are visiting or gives vague answers may raise additional questions, especially if their itinerary is unclear. Immigration officers are trained to look for consistency between what travelers say, what is written on their forms, and what appears in their travel history. Because of that, the best approach is to keep your answer short, clear, and truthful. A simple explanation like, "I'm visiting my cousin who lives in Chicago for a week," usually provides exactly the level of detail officers are looking for. Number 5. Have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime? Border officers sometimes ask visitors about their past legal record, including whether they have ever been arrested or convicted of a crime. One of the most serious questions immigration officers may ask during an entry interview is whether you have ever been arrested or convicted of a crime. While it can feel uncomfortable, this question plays an important role in determining whether a traveler is eligible to enter the country. Many countries, including the United States, review criminal history as part of their border security process. Officers often have access to information that travelers may assume is hidden. This means that trying to conceal past arrests or convictions can lead to far bigger consequences than the original issue itself. If a traveler provides false information and it later appears during a background check, officers may view that as misrepresentation, which can result in denial of entry or even future travel restrictions. On the other hand, being honest allows officers to properly evaluate the situation. In some cases, minor offenses that happened many years ago may not automatically prevent someone from entering, especially if the traveler clearly explains the circumstances. Immigration officers are primarily looking for honesty and consistency between your answers and the information in their system. That's why the safest approach is always to answer truthfully, stay calm, and provide clear information if asked. Being upfront about your history helps avoid misunderstandings and allows the process to move forward more smoothly. Number 6. Have you traveled anywhere else recently? Border officers may also ask travelers about their recent international trips before arriving. At first glance, this may seem like casual conversation, but it actually helps officers quickly understand a traveler's recent movement history. This can include areas with ongoing security concerns or countries currently under special monitoring by border agencies. In many cases, the officer already has access to basic travel history through passport stamps, airline records, or visa data. Asking the question directly simply allows them to confirm that the traveler's explanation matches what appears in the system. For example, if someone recently traveled through several countries before arriving, officers may ask follow-up questions about the purpose of those visits or how long they stayed there. During global health events, similar questions may also help determine whether travelers were recently in places with disease outbreaks or specific health restrictions. Most of the time, this question is routine and doesn't indicate that anything is wrong. Immigration officers are mainly checking for consistency and ensuring there are no travel patterns that require extra attention. Because of that, the best response is usually the simplest one. Answer honestly and clearly list the places you visited. As long as your explanation matches your passport stamps and travel records, the question is typically just another quick step in the standard entry screening process. Number 7. Have you ever been denied entry before? Officers may also ask if you have ever been refused entry by another country in the past. Being denied entry in the past does not automatically mean you will be refused again, but officers usually want to know the details of what happened. For example, a traveler might have been denied because of missing documents, visa confusion, or an incorrect travel purpose during a previous trip. In many cases, these are administrative issues rather than serious violations. Immigration systems today also store much more travel data than they did years ago, meaning officers can often see records of past entry attempts or refusals in their system. That's why honesty is especially important with this question. If someone claims they have never been denied entry, but a record appears in the system, it can create suspicion and lead to additional questioning. On the other hand, providing a clear and calm explanation usually helps the process move forward. Immigration officers are primarily looking for consistency and transparency, not perfection in a traveler's history. Number 8. Did you pack your own bags? Travelers are often asked to confirm whether they personally packed the luggage they are bringing into the country. While it may seem simple, this question is an important part of international security. Border officers ask it to make sure travelers are aware of everything inside their luggage and that no unknown items were placed there without their knowledge. The concern is that someone could unknowingly carry restricted goods, illegal items, or packages given by another person. By asking this question, officers are confirming that the traveler maintained control of their bags from the moment they were packed until they arrived at the airport. Most travelers simply answer that they packed their own luggage and that the bags have remained with them throughout the journey. However, if someone helped you pack or asked you to carry something for them, it's best to mention it honestly. For example, a friend or family member might have given you a small gift or package to deliver. In those cases, officers may ask a few extra questions about what the item is and who it belongs to. This doesn't automatically mean there is a problem. They simply want to ensure everything in the luggage is known and declared properly. As long as you know what you packed and answer clearly, this step is usually quick and routine. Number 9. Proof of departure question. Officers may also want to know how and when you plan to leave the country. Officers may ask whether you have proof of departure, such as a return ticket or a confirmed onward flight. This question helps them determine whether a traveler intends to stay only for the permitting period or might try to remain longer than allowed. In many cases, having a return ticket or an onward travel booking is one of the easiest ways to show that your trip has a clear end date. It demonstrates that you already have plans to leave and are not planning to overstay your visa or entry authorization. Travelers visiting for tourism, short business trips, or family visits often carry printed or digital copies of their return flight confirmation for this reason.
While not every country strictly requires proof of departure in every situation, immigration officers may still ask about it if they want to better understand your travel plans. For example, someone entering on a short tourist stay but unable to explain when or how they plan to leave may raise additional questions. That's why it's generally recommended to have a return or onward ticket arranged before arriving. If asked, simply explain your departure plan clearly and show your booking if needed. Number 10. Nervous traveler. One situation immigration officers encounter surprisingly often involves travelers who become extremely nervous during routine questioning. A common example shared by border officers involves a mother arriving at customs who was simply asked a basic question about the food items in her luggage. Instead of giving a short answer, she began explaining in great detail everything she had packed, why she packed it, where she bought it, and who it was for. What started as a simple yes or no question quickly turned into a long and confusing explanation. The officer wasn't suspicious at first, but the excessive details made the situation seem more complicated than it actually was. This is something immigration officers see quite frequently. Many travelers become anxious at the border and feel the need to over-explain every part of their trip. In reality, most officers prefer clear and concise answers. They're trained to ask specific questions and will request more information only if they need it. For example, if an officer asks whether you packed your own bags or what the purpose of your trip is, a short and direct answer is usually all that's required. Staying calm, answering honestly, and keeping responses simple usually helps the process move much more smoothly. Number 11. Social media history review. In recent years, immigration screening has expanded beyond passports and travel documents to include certain aspects of a traveler's digital history. Some visa applicants may be asked to provide information about their social media activity from the past 5 years as part of the application process. This typically includes listing the usernames or handles used on major social media platforms during that period. The goal is not to monitor everyday conversations, but to help authorities verify identity and identify potential security concerns during background checks. Along with social media identifiers, applicants may also be asked to provide other contact history, such as phone numbers used over the last 5 years and email addresses used over the past 10 years. For many travelers, this requirement comes up when applying for certain visas or travel authorizations, rather than during a short border interview. Because immigration systems today rely heavily on digital verification, providing accurate information has become increasingly important. Inconsistent or missing details can sometimes delay an application while officers request clarification. That's why travelers are generally advised to keep a simple record of their past contact information and online identifiers when completing visa forms. While the process may feel unusual to some applicants, it has become part of the broader effort by many countries to strengthen identity verification and improve border security in the digital age.
Number 12. Occupation verification. A person's job or profession is another detail officers often ask about during the immigration interview. At first, it may seem like a simple detail, but employment status can provide useful context about a traveler's background and the purpose of their trip. Officers often ask what you do for a living to confirm that your explanation of the trip matches your professional situation. For example, someone who says they are visiting for a short vacation may mention their regular job back home, while a traveler attending meetings might explain their role within a company. In some situations, officers may also request basic proof of employment, especially if the trip involves business activities or if they want to confirm that the traveler has strong ties to their home country. This could include a company ID, a business card, a work contract, or even a letter from an employer confirming the trip. The purpose isn't to conduct a detailed investigation into your career, but rather to verify that your story makes sense and that you have a reason to return home after your visit. Employment is often seen as one indicator of stability and ties outside the country you are entering. As a result, immigration officers sometimes use this question to understand a traveler's circumstances more clearly. The best approach is simply to answer honestly and confidently about what you do. Number 13. Do you have a return ticket?
Your departure plans are another detail officers may ask about during the entry interview. This question helps officers quickly determine whether a traveler plans to leave the country within the allowed time period. For tourists and short-term visitors, having a round-trip ticket is one of the simplest ways to demonstrate that the trip is temporary. It shows that you already have a planned departure date and are not intending to stay indefinitely. Many travelers include their return flight booking as part of their travel preparations for exactly this reason. During the interview, an officer might simply ask when your return flight is scheduled. A clear and confident answer is usually all they need. In some situations, officers may also ask to see the ticket confirmation on your phone or as a printed copy, especially if they want to quickly verify the details. This doesn't necessarily mean there is a problem. It is simply part of routine screening to confirm travel plans. Travelers who arrive without a return ticket may sometimes face additional questions about how long they plan to stay and how they intend to leave the country. Because of that, having proof of onward travel can make the process much smoother. Number 14. Are you carrying any food, plants, or animal products? Customs officers often ask travelers whether they are carrying food, plants, or animal products in their luggage. At first, this question might seem minor, but it plays a major role in protecting a country's agriculture and natural environment. Many nations have strict rules designed to prevent foreign pests, diseases, and invasive species from entering their ecosystems. Even everyday items that seem harmless, such as fresh fruit, homemade meals, meat products, seeds, or small plants, can sometimes carry insects or bacteria that threaten local crops and wildlife. Travelers are usually required to indicate on their declaration forms whether they are bringing any food or biological products into the country. During inspection, officers may ask follow-up questions or check luggage to confirm that everything has been properly reported. In many cases, people pack snacks, gifts, or traditional foods from home without realizing they might be restricted. If an undeclared item is discovered during an inspection, the result can range from a simple warning to fines, confiscation of the items, or further questioning. The safest approach is always transparency. If you are unsure whether something should be declared, it's better to mention it first. In most situations, officers will simply inspect the item and decide whether it can enter the country or if a duty must be paid. Number 15. Do you have anything to declare? Near the end of the entry process, travelers are often asked one final but very important question, whether they have anything to declare. This question connects the immigration interview with the customs inspection that follows. Officers are trying to determine whether you are bringing items into the country that must be officially reported. These can include large amounts of cash, certain food products, alcohol or tobacco beyond personal limits, agricultural items like seeds or plants, and expensive goods that may be subject to duties or taxes. Most countries require travelers to complete a declaration form before arriving, where they indicate whether they are carrying any of these items. The officer's question is often used to confirm that your verbal answer matches what you wrote on the form. Many travelers worry that declaring something will automatically lead to penalties or delays, but that is usually not the case. In most situations, declaring an item simply allows customs officers to inspect it. Problems usually arise only when travelers fail to declare items that are later discovered during inspection. That can lead to confiscation, fines, or additional questioning. Because of this, the safest approach is always transparency. Being honest with customs officers typically makes the process much faster and smoother for everyone involved. Number 16. What do you plan to do during your stay? Immigration officers often ask travelers what they plan to do during their stay in the country. This question helps them confirm that the purpose of your visit matches the type of visa or travel authorization you're using. Every visa category is designed for a specific reason: tourism, business, study, or work. So officers want to make sure the activities you describe are consistent with those rules. For example, a traveler entering as a tourist might explain that they plan to spend their time sightseeing, visiting famous landmarks, exploring national parks, or meeting friends and family. These are typical activities that fit within a standard visitor or tourist visa. On the other hand, someone traveling for business may mention attending meetings, participating in conferences, visiting company offices, or discussing projects with colleagues. These explanations help officers quickly understand the nature of the trip. The important thing is that your answer sounds clear and realistic for the length of your stay. For instance, saying you plan to tour several cities over a 2-week vacation makes sense, while vague or unclear answers can sometimes lead to follow-up questions. The best approach is to keep your answer simple and direct. A short explanation of your travel plans usually provides exactly the information officers are looking for.
Number 17. Are you traveling alone or with others? Entry interviews often include a quick question about whether your trip is solo or part of a group. While this sounds like a very simple question, it actually helps officers verify details about your travel group and ensure that everyone's answers match. Border officers often speak to travelers individually, especially when families or groups are entering together. For example, if one traveler says they are part of a group or traveling with family members, but another person connected to them claims they are traveling alone, that inconsistency can raise additional questions. It doesn't automatically mean there's a problem, but officers may want to clarify the situation before allowing entry. In most cases, the answer is straightforward. Some travelers simply explain that they are traveling alone for tourism, business, or a short visit. Others might say they are traveling with family members, such as a spouse and children, or with friends on a vacation trip. As with most immigration questions, the best approach is to give a clear and direct response. A simple explanation like, "I'm traveling alone," or "I'm traveling with my wife and 2 children," is usually all that's needed for the officer to move on to the next step. And there you have it. Most immigration interviews aren't about trick questions or catching travelers off guard. In reality, officers are simply trying to confirm that your story makes sense: who you are, why you're visiting, how long you're staying, and whether your plans match your documents. As you've seen, the questions themselves are usually straightforward. The key is staying calm, answering honestly, and keeping your responses clear and simple. When your answers match your travel documents and your plans sound realistic, the entire process usually takes less than a minute. Immigration officers conduct thousands of these interviews every single day. A little preparation before you arrive at the airport can make a big difference in how smooth that moment at the immigration desk feels. If you've traveled internationally before, you might have heard some of these questions already, and if you're planning a trip soon, now you know exactly what to expect. And I'm curious, what's the most surprising question you've ever been asked at airport immigration? Let me know in the comments below.